Emily felt an exhaustion that seeped right into her very core, a weariness born from years of relentless hard work. The grind of juggling two jobs had taken its toll on her body and spirit. Mornings were spent tethered to a desk in a bustling office, while evenings found her waiting tables at a local diner, often with no weekends to recharge. All of this was for one singular purpose: to pay off the mortgage on the small apartment her parents had agreed to let her have, provided she covered every last penny herself. She poured every ounce of her energy into this dream, holding on to the hope that the day she made her final payment would bring some much-needed rest. She longed for her family to recognize her sacrifices and offer a word of encouragement during this grueling journey. Maybe even a simple pat on the back over a shared Sunday roast. After a long shift, Emily swung by the neighborhood grocery store, grabbing ingredients for a hearty dinner, perhaps a comforting meatloaf or some mac and cheese to lift everyone's spirits. She headed to her parents' house, climbing the familiar creaky stairs with a flicker of anticipation for a cozy evening. But as she stepped inside, a heavy tension hung in the air, stifling any warmth she'd expected. Her parents sat at the kitchen table, their faces grim, while her sister Olivia and brother-in-law Ethan lingered nearby, equally somber. The usually lively home, often filled with laughter and the clatter of dishes, felt eerily still, as if bracing for an impending storm. Sophia, her mother, broke the silence with a tone that chilled Emily to the bone, saying, "Hey, Emily, we need to have a serious talk." Instantly on edge, Emily sensed something was terribly wrong. She dropped her grocery bags by the door and took a seat, her voice tight as she asked, "What's going on?" Her father, Peter, let out a deep sigh, his eyes avoiding hers as he muttered, "We've made a decision." Emily's heart raced, a knot forming in her stomach. Trying to keep her composure, she pressed, "What kind of decision?" Sophia reached across the table, gripping Emily's hand with a forced tenderness, and said, "Sweetie, you're a wonderful daughter. You've done so much for us." But Emily could hear the hollow ring in her mother's words, sensing an unspoken catch. Cutting to the chase, she prompted, "But what?" Sophia's gaze dropped to the table as she murmured, "We're giving the apartment to Olivia." Emily froze, convinced she'd misheard. Her voice barely above a whisper, she stammered, "What do you mean by that?" Peter clarified in a flat tone, "The apartment belongs to Olivia and Ethan now. They're a young family, after all." In that moment, Emily's world shattered. Every hope, every late-night shift, every sacrifice she'd made felt utterly pointless. She stared at her parents, then at Olivia and Ethan, disbelief morphing into raw pain. Her voice trembled with hurt and betrayal as she cried out, "How could you do this to me? I've been killing myself to pay that mortgage, working my fingers to the bone. How could you just take it all away?" Olivia looked down at her hands, avoiding eye contact, while Ethan stayed silent, shifting uncomfortably. Sophia opened her mouth to respond, but Emily cut her off, her voice breaking with emotion. "I don't get it. I thought we were a family. I thought you valued everything I've done for us." Tears streamed down her face as her words echoed in the quiet room. Sophia tried to soothe her, saying softly, "Emily, please don't take it like this." But Emily's anger flared, and she snapped back, "Don't take it like this! You've betrayed me!" Unable to bear another second at that table, she stormed off to her old bedroom, the sting of their words cutting deeper than she could handle. Her hands shook as she started packing her things, tears blurring her vision. She had no idea where to go or what to do next. All she had were a few belongings and a meager savings account, hardly enough to start over. She felt utterly lost and alone, as if the ground had been pulled out from under her. Moments later, her parents appeared in the doorway. Sophia's voice was laced with guilt as she said, "Emily, maybe we can figure something out together." But Emily, still reeling from the shock, could only stare at them, her heart heavy with doubt and pain. Emily stood in the middle of the living room, her voice trembling with anger as she confronted her mother without meeting her gaze. You made the decision, you handed over my apartment to my sister, and you've completely betrayed me. Her words cut through the tense silence. Peter, her father, tried to explain their reasoning with a hesitant tone. We thought this would be the best solution for everyone, he mumbled, rubbing the back of his neck. Best for who exactly? For you? For Olivia and Ethan? What about me? Did I even cross your mind? Emily shot back, her voice dripping with bitterness and hurt. Her parents sat in uncomfortable silence, fully aware of the unfairness of their choice, but unable to admit their mistake. Without another word, Emily finished packing her belongings, slung her bag over her shoulder, and headed for the door. Goodbye, she said coldly, not bothering to look back. Sophia, her mother, called out desperately, Emily, wait! But Emily didn't stop. She stepped out of the apartment, shutting the door behind her with a final thud. In that moment, she felt the last thread connecting her to her family snap. She was utterly alone. Stepping onto the busy street, the city felt cold and unwelcoming, like a stranger turning its back on her. Emily wandered aimlessly, unsure of where to go or what to do next. All she carried was a heavy burden of pain and disillusionment. As she walked down the sidewalk, oblivious to the world around her, tears streamed down her face, her heart aching with resentment and despair. She kept walking until she reached a bus stop, where she collapsed onto a bench, burying her face in her hands. The future was a blur. Where would she live? How would she survive? The weight of uncertainty pressed down on her. With the help of her loyal friend Isabella, Emily eventually found a tiny room to rent, barely more than a bed, and the damp smell of mildew clinging to the walls. This was her new reality, a far cry from the comfort she once knew. Yet, while she was no stranger to hardship, the sting of her family's betrayal cut deeper than any cramped living space or leaky ceiling ever could. Desperate for stability, Emily scoured for extra work, but every lead seemed to dry up, leaving her on the brink of giving up. Then, one day, while flipping through the local paper over a cheap cup of diner coffee, she spotted an ad for a dishwasher position during the night shift at a small, family-run diner. It wasn't glamorous. Long hours, low pay, scrubbing greasy plates until her hands ached. But it was a lifeline, and she grabbed it with both hands. Her days morphed into an exhausting cycle. Mornings at her office job, evenings waiting tables at a nearby cafe, and nights washing dishes until the early hours. She barely had energy left to stand, let alone think. To make ends meet, Emily cut corners wherever she could, surviving on budget meals like canned soup and day-old bread from the corner store, and walking everywhere to save on bus fare, even when her feet throbbed from the miles. One night, after a grueling shift, Emily was trudging home when a sharp pain gripped her stomach, doubling her over. She collapsed onto the pavement, unable to get up, her vision blurring at the edges. Passers-by hurried along, some casting quick glances, but none stopping to help, typical for a city that never slows down. Just as she felt herself slipping, a hand reached out to her. Struggling to lift her head, Emily saw a familiar face. It was Daniel, an old co-worker from her office days, always the kind-hearted guy who'd share his sandwich at lunch or cover for her when she was running late. "Emily, what's wrong?" he asked with genuine concern, helping her to her feet. In a shaky voice, she poured out her story, the betrayal by her family, losing her home, the endless grind of multiple jobs just to stay afloat. Daniel listened intently, his expression full of empathy, not interrupting once. "I had no idea you were going through all this," he said softly when she finished. "This is awful." With his support, Daniel helped Emily make it back to her dingy room. Once there, he brewed her a mug of hot tea. the kind you'd find in any suburban kitchen, and insisted she rest for a bit, even if just for an hour. "Hey, Emily," he said gently after she calmed down a little. "I know you're in a tough spot right now, but I want to help however I can." His words carried a quiet sincerity, a small flicker of hope in the midst of her storm. Emily cast a skeptical glance at him, her life having taught her to rely solely on her own strength and to expect little help from others. Daniel, however, pressed on with a casual tone. "I run a small auto repair shop down on Maple Street. I've been looking for someone to help out. It's tough work, no doubt, but the pay's decent and the hours are flexible. You could still keep your shifts at the diner if you want." Emily was caught off guard by his generosity, deeply touched by the unexpected offer. She fumbled for words, unsure how to express her gratitude. I don't even know what to say," she stammered. "Thank you so much, Daniel." He waved it off with a warm smile. "No need to thank me. I just want to see you get back on your feet. You're a tough cookie, and I know you've got what it takes to make it." From that moment, Emily's life took a turn for the better. She quit her dead-end office job, where she barely scraped by, and started working at Daniel's shop. The work was grueling, grease under her nails and long hours on her feet, but it was also rewarding in ways she hadn't expected. She picked up the skills quickly, becoming an invaluable part of the team in no time. Daniel turned out to be more than just a boss. He was a true friend and a patient mentor. He taught her the ins and outs of car repair, how to handle tricky customers with a smile, and even the basics of managing the shop's books. His belief in her abilities gave her a confidence she hadn't felt in years, and he was always there to cheer her on. After long days at the shop, Daniel often suggested they grab a bite together, maybe some classic burgers and fries at the local diner, or a slice of apple pie to unwind. They'd stroll through the city park, chatting about everything from work to life's little quirks. Emily began to sense something deeper growing between them, beyond mere friendship. Daniel was kind-hearted, thoughtful, and always attentive, making her feel safe and cherished in a way she hadn't experienced before. One crisp evening, after a leisurely walk through the park with the autumn leaves crunching underfoot, Daniel stopped and gently took her hand. "Emily, I've been meaning to tell you something for a while." He started, his voice steady but earnest. "I admire your grit and hard work so much. I've fallen for you." Emily froze, her heart racing with the weight of his words. She'd felt something special for him too, but admitting it to herself had been terrifying. I feel the same way," she whispered, her gaze dropping to the ground. Daniel pulled her into a tender embrace, and in that moment, all her fears and doubts seemed to melt away. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly happy. Working at the auto shop had reignited her belief in herself. Watching her transform day by day, seeing the spark return to her eyes and her confidence soar, Daniel recognized her untapped potential and the dreams she'd yet to chase. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day, with the scent of engine oil lingering in the air and a fresh pot of coffee brewing in the break room, Daniel came up with a surprising idea. "Hey, Em, I've been tossing this around in my head for a bit," he began, rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly. "You've always been amazing at baking. Remember those blueberry muffins you brought in for the cruise barbecue last month? Everyone raved about them." "So, I was thinking—" He trailed off, as if hesitant to finish his thought. Emily, intrigued, set down her wrench and leaned against the workbench. "Thinking what, Dan?" she prompted with a curious tilt of her head. "What if we opened a little coffee shop?" he blurted out, his cheeks flushing slightly. "Nothing fancy, just a cozy spot with your baked goods, maybe some killer lattes. I know it sounds crazy, but you've got some savings tucked away, and I'm willing to pitch in. We could give it a shot." Emily was floored by the suggestion. A coffee shop? The idea had never crossed her mind. After everything she'd been through, her focus had been on survival. on finding any kind of stability. Yet Daniel's vision sparked something inside her, a flicker of excitement she hadn't felt in ages. Dan, that's incredible, she murmured. But I'm scared. What if it all falls apart? I'm completely clueless about running a business. I'll admit that right off the bat. Daniel gave a warm, reassuring smile as he looked at me. Hey, don't worry about it, Emily. I'm no business wizard myself, but we'll figure this out together. I'll handle the logistics and crunch the numbers, while you work your magic in the kitchen. You've got a real gift, and I'm confident we're going to make this work. That conversation marked the start of an exciting new chapter for us. We spent weeks scouring the city for the perfect spot, diving into business books, experimenting with recipes, and bickering good-naturedly over paint colors and furniture styles for the interior. Despite my initial nerves, I started to feel a growing sense of confidence with each passing day. Having Daniel by my side made all the difference. His unwavering belief in me was infectious, and before long, I started to believe in our dream too. After what felt like endless searching, we stumbled upon a charming little space in a quiet neighborhood. It used to be a small, family-run bakery, and you could still feel the warmth and nostalgia lingering in the air. We decided to name our cafe something simple and heartfelt. Daisy's Corner. The renovation took a few grueling months, with Daniel pitching in wherever he could, hauling boxes and chatting with the contractors, while I poured my heart into crafting the menu and baking batch after batch of trial pies, muffins, and scones. Our vision was to create a place that felt like home, where folks could kick back with a cup of coffee and just unwind. Finally, the grand opening day arrived, and I was a bundle of nerves, feeling like I was about to take a final exam. Dressed in a crisp new apron, I stood behind the counter at Daisy's Corner, watching anxiously as the first customers trickled in. The early days were slow, with just a handful of visitors, but word of mouth spread like wildfire, thanks to my homemade apple pies and cinnamon rolls that reminded people of Sunday mornings at Grandma's house. Soon, the cafe became a local favorite, a cozy spot for a latte, or a quick bite of comfort food like mac and cheese or a hearty BLT sandwich. I couldn't help but beam with joy as I watched my dream take shape, loving every moment of baking and seeing the smiles on people's faces as they savored each bite. Daniel was over the moon too, noticing how I'd blossomed into a more confident and capable version of myself. Within a few months, Daisy's Corner was the talk of the neighborhood, bustling with regulars, and we even had to hire a couple of extra hands to keep up with the demand. With a bit more breathing room in my schedule, I could finally spend some quality time with Daniel and myself. One quiet evening, after we'd locked up for the night, we sat at one of the small tables by the window, sipping chamomile tea and gazing out at the city lights twinkling in the distance. I leaned into him, feeling a wave of gratitude. Thanks, Dan, for everything. I couldn't have done this without you, not in a million years. That night, I felt a deep, genuine happiness wash over me. I had built something successful, found work I was passionate about, and had someone I loved by my side. The pain of past family betrayals faded into the background as I embraced the present and looked forward to the future with hope in my heart. One afternoon, as I was kneading dough for a fresh batch of biscuits, my phone buzzed on the counter. I usually let unknown numbers go to voicemail, wary of pushy telemarketers, but something told me to pick up this time. Wiping the flour off my hands with a dish towel, I tapped the screen and answered hesitantly. Hello? A shaky sob crackled through the line. Emily, it's Mom, came Sophia's voice, trembling with raw emotion. My heart skipped a beat. It had been over a year since I'd last seen or spoken to anyone in my family. I'd buried those memories deep, trying to block out the hurt and betrayal they'd caused me. Yet hearing my mother's voice, once so familiar, now almost a stranger's, froze me in place, a lump forming in my throat. What's going on? Emily asked, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside her. Sophia pressed on, her tone urgent. We really need your help, Emily. Emily stayed silent for a moment, unsure of how to respond. Her heart was torn between two powerful feelings, a deep-seated anger and resentment toward her family for the way they had wronged her, and a lingering pity for her mother, who had always been a commanding figure in her life, even if her authority often felt unfair. Mom, I don't even know what you're getting at. After everything you've put me through, why are you reaching out now? Emily's words carried a sharp edge of bitterness. Sophia's voice trembled as she replied, Emily, I know we've treated you terribly. I get why you're upset with us, but please, just hear me out. We've lost everything. She stumbled through a chaotic explanation about how Ethan had gotten tangled up with some shady characters, borrowed a massive sum of money, and put their house up as collateral, only for it all to fall apart. The lenders seized their home, leaving them with nothing to their name. So, what do you expect from me? Emily snapped, feeling the anger bubble up inside her. You want me to swoop in and save the day? To give up everything I've worked for just so you can live comfortably again? Sophia's voice broke as she sobbed. Emily, please don't say that. We know we've let you down. We thought giving the house to Olivia and Ethan was the right thing for everyone, but we were so wrong. Horribly wrong. We've got nowhere else to turn, no place to go. I'm begging you, Emily, just help us out for a little while. Let us stay with you until we figure something out. Emily fell silent, wrestling with her thoughts. She knew she ought to say no. They had brought this on themselves. But at the same time, she couldn't help feeling a pang of sympathy for her mother, for her parents, who were now in such a desperate spot after losing everything. I don't know what to tell you, Mom. I need some time to think this over. I'll call you back, she said, trying to mask the turmoil in her voice. Emily, please don't turn us away just yet. We're pleading with you. We'll do anything to make this right, Sophia continued, her voice thick with desperation. Emily ended the call abruptly, unable to listen any longer. She felt utterly drained and confused. Her mother's plea had ripped open old wounds she'd fought so hard to heal. She glanced over at Daniel, who had been watching her with concern. He'd noticed how her expression shifted during the conversation, how her face grew pale and her hands clenched into fists. Hey, what's wrong, Em? Who is that on the phone? Daniel asked gently, walking over and wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Emily poured out the story of her mother's call and the desperate request for help. Daniel listened quietly, letting her speak without interruption. When she finished, he pulled her into a tight hug and said, I know this is tearing you apart, but you've got to remember, you don't owe them a thing. They betrayed you, Emily. They don't deserve your help. I get that, Dan, I really do. But they're still my family, my mom. I can't just turn my back on them, Emily replied, her voice cracking as tears welled up in her eyes. Daniel sighed softly, brushing a tear from her cheek. Emily, you've got a heart of gold, but you can't let them take advantage of you again. They've done it before, and they could do it again. You've got to put yourself first. Think about your own happiness. You deserve so much better than this. Emily leaned into him, knowing deep down that Daniel was right. Just last week, she'd been enjoying a quiet Sunday brunch with him at their favorite diner, laughing over stacks of pancakes and maple syrup, planning a little getaway for the fall. Now, this call had thrown everything into chaos. She couldn't help but recall the countless times her family had dismissed her sacrifices, like when they'd expected her to chip in for every holiday dinner, down to the last cent for the Thanksgiving turkey, while barely offering a thank you. And yet, here they were, asking for a lifeline as if none of that history mattered. She sighed, the weight of the decision pressing down on her, wondering how she'd even begin to sort through this mess. Emily knew deep down that she couldn't let the shadows of her past dim the light of her present or future. She had fought hard for her happiness, and no one had the right to strip it away from her. "I'll give her a call tomorrow," Emily murmured, pulling back from Daniel's comforting embrace. "I'm going to tell her I can't help them out. I'll make it clear that I've let go of the resentment, but I'm not about to sacrifice my own life for their sake." Daniel wrapped his arms around her once more, his voice warm with reassurance. "I'm so proud of you, Emily. You've got this," he said softly. The next morning, Emily woke up with a heavy heart, the weight of the impending conversation pressing down on her. She knew she had to call her mom and lay out the truth, no matter how hard it would be. Trying to distract herself, she whipped up a hearty breakfast of pancakes and bacon for herself and Daniel. The familiar sizzle of the pan and the smell of maple syrup filling their small kitchen with a fleeting sense of normalcy. After they ate, with her hands trembling slightly, Emily dialed her mom's number, her nerves jangling like loose change. The line picked up almost instantly on the other end. "Emily, sweetheart, you called back. I'm so glad. Does this mean you'll help us?" Sophia's voice brimmed with desperate hope. Taking a deep breath to steady herself, Emily responded, "Mom, I've thought long and hard about what you asked, and I've made up my mind. I can't help you." A heavy silence hung in the air, broken only by Sophia's uneven breathing. What? What did you just say?" Sophia stammered, her tone laced with disbelief. "I said I can't help you," Emily repeated firmly. "I know you're in a tough spot, but I can't keep giving up everything I've built just to pull you out of trouble. I've been through too much. I deserve to be happy, and I won't let anyone take that from me." Sophia's voice cracked as she pleaded through tears. "But what about us? What are we supposed to do? Where can we even go?" Emily's resolve didn't waver as she replied, "That's not my burden to carry, Mom. You made your choices, and now it's time for you to face the consequences. I forgive you, but that doesn't mean I have to put my life on hold for you." Sophia's tone shifted to raw anger as she shouted through the phone. "Emily, how can you be so heartless, so cold? How can you turn your back on your own family like this?" "I'm not heartless, Mom. I'm just protecting myself," Emily countered, her voice steady despite the sting of the words. "I've spent too long living for you. Now, I'm living for me. Goodbye." With that, she ended the call, feeling an immense weight lift from her shoulders. She had done what needed to be done. She had drawn her line in the sand and safeguarded her peace. She knew her parents would be furious, that they might never understand her decision, but that no longer mattered. She was finally free. Turning to Daniel, who stood by her side with a supportive hand on her shoulder, Emily managed a small smile and said, "It's over now." Daniel pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead and murmured, "I'll always be here for you, Emily. I've got your back, no matter what. You're the strongest woman I know." Emily leaned into him, closing her eyes for a moment, letting herself imagine the road ahead. In her mind's eye, she saw herself and Daniel, hand in hand, thriving together. She pictured her little coffee shop bustling with regulars, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and homemade apple pie wafting through the air, a neighborhood favorite. She envisioned a life brimming with love, laughter, and purpose. And deep down, she knew it would all come true because she was finally in control of her own destiny. Opening her eyes, she gazed at Daniel, seeing her own joy mirrored in his expression. In that moment, she realized that everything she needed for happiness was already right there with her. The past was behind her, nothing more than a bad dream she'd never have to relive. Ahead of them lay a bright and promising future, one they were building together with their own hands, day by day, hour by hour, and moment by moment. This future was brimming with hope, deep affection, and an unshakable belief in themselves and in each other. It was the kind of dream they nurtured over morning coffee and late night chats, often while sharing a comforting plate of mac and cheese or a hearty slice of apple pie after a long day. They faced the usual small squabbles, like who forgot to take out the trash or whose turn it was to pick up groceries. But even those tiny disagreements couldn't dim the warmth they shared. Their trust in one another was a steady anchor, whether they were planning a weekend barbecue with friends or just cheering each other on through life's little challenges, always ready with a supportive, "Hey, you've got this," or a playful nudge to keep going.